All right, so what are we going to talk about today? The perfect client relationship. Many call it the unicorn. How your client finds you, how you find your customers, and then a proposed new approach to these things. So how to find your clients and how they can find you, and then how you can work that client relationship in the future. We'll do a little Q&A, and we'll be done. All right, so this is the unicorn. Why do we call it the unicorn? Well, I call it the unicorn. Does anybody know why I call something like this a unicorn? Because it's a mythical creature, right? So does the perfect client relationship exist? I argue that it can, okay, but in many cases it doesn't. So let's, ooh boy, almost spoiled it. Okay, so who here is somebody that creates websites for other people? Okay, so everybody, that's great. So tell me what makes an awesome, a perfect client relationship? Just shout it out.
Pays on time.
Pays on time, okay, that's good. That's a good one. Pays it all. We want people to pay. They don't yell at you or they do? Oh, they don't yell at you, okay. All right, anybody else? What's that? Involved in the process, okay. Okay, they trust your recommendations.
Can articulate what they want.
They can articulate what they want. Communication, okay. Awesome. All really good. Some that I didn't put in the slides, but all very good. So here's what I came up with. Mutual trust and respect, right? If you're going to be in a client relationship, and this goes to payment and things like that, you want to trust that they're going to pay you. They want to trust that you're going to do the work, right? You want to respect them. They should be respecting you, right? These go both ways. Passion, okay? So passion in their business, right? You want your client to be passionate about what they do, and your client wants you to be passionate about building awesome things for them, right? That's what a good web designer, developer is all about. Willingness to learn. So how many times have you had that conversation with your client? Oh, that's nice. I forgot to turn off notifications on my phone. How many times have you talked with a client and you say, hey, this is how you go in there and update this thing, right? Because they've asked you how to update something. And they say, oh, that's great. And then like 2 days later, they're like, hey, how do I update that thing again? It happens all the time. I used to build websites for bars and restaurants. And this was the worst because they would write it down on some piece of paper, and that piece of paper would be like who knows what it was used for the next night, right, at the bar, but it was gone, right? So willingness to learn. And that goes for you all too, right? You have to have a willingness to learn about the industry that you're working in, right? So if you're making websites for bars and restaurants, or for real estate, or for who knows what, boating adventures, right? You have to be willing to learn about these industries, so that then you can do a better, more informed job for them. And then engagement and communication. So you want to always be communicating as obviously best practice as a designer, developer, entrepreneur. You want to be communicating with your client always, and you want your client to be communicating with you. If they're going to be late on a payment, they need to tell you. If you're going to be late on delivering, you need to tell them, right? If you can't deliver, you have to tell them that too, right? So communication and engagement are key. And then vision. And this is one that I didn't hear, but very, very important, right? So your client depends on you to have a vision of their business on the web, right? And you depend on your client to have a vision for what they want to see on their website, right? Or for where their business is going. So these are the things that I consider important attributes of, is there one more? Oh, partnership. So those are things I consider really, really important to having the perfect client relationship. Okay? So now let's talk about how your clients find you. So again, setting up where I'm going to take you with the education piece. So this is going to get a little more textbooky. Okay? So how do you all think your client finds you? Again, shout it out. Where, how, when, what's the process? Any thoughts? And what's that? Word of mouth, okay. Google, we got Google. LinkedIn. Who said that? All right. Anybody else? In-person networking. Okay, so this is the process that somebody goes through as they're making a purchasing decision. Now, this is a basic buying process. There are plenty of iterations of this online, right? But the important things you have to understand are that your client decides that they need something, right? So they say, oh, I have a business, now I need a website, right? Then the next thing they say is, okay, I got to go find how to make or how to get this website. So what they do is they go to Google and they start searching for it, right? Or they ask a friend or something like that. They search for alternatives, so they figured out how to go about it. Now they're trying to price their options, right? They're trying to figure out what the features are and the benefits are for going with different suppliers. They're going to decide on a supplier, and then they're going to buy. All right? So what does that look like in the context of your customer? So they say, all right, I think I need a website, right? Let me Google that, because everybody does that now. I can do it myself, or I can hire someone, right? They go through this decision process. Then they say, I do or I don't have time, right? So they figured out that they can do it themselves, or they can hire someone. Then they say, I do or I don't have time, and I do or I don't need that much control, right? That's the process that they go through. And then, at the end, they're building, right? Would everybody agree with this? From what you know of the process your clients go through. Okay. So this is where your client discovers you. All right. And this is where they're on Google, or it's word of mouth, or it's LinkedIn, or any of those other in-person networking, any of those other methods. Now keep that in mind, and now we're going to talk about how you find your clients. So a lot of you, when you threw out these ideas of how your clients find you, you brought up this, right? Because this is what you know. This is how you acquire your customers, right? This is how you acquire your clients. This isn't how your clients think about it, right? This isn't how they think about where they're going. This is what they're doing, right? And this is how you think about acquiring. So organic traffic, word of mouth, paid advertising, in-person marketing, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of those things, right? These are the different ways that you find your clients. And the problem is, it's freaking hard, right? So it's like this person trying to catch butterflies in a seemingly impossible place, right? But the thing is, this is where you meet your customer, right? You meet your customer on Google, on LinkedIn. Have I beat that in enough? All right. So then, once you're done with that, we're going to continue on the journey, right? We're telling the story of you, right? So once the work starts, there are questions. There are a lot of questions, okay? And there are questions about websites. So who has ever been asked a question about a website from a client? Who? Really? Whoever's not raising their hand either was lying about being in the web development business, or they're just not listening, which totally, completely cool. Just come clean, guys. Come clean. It's fair. So what are some questions about websites? I won't make you go through all of them. I'll suggest some. So how do I add a new menu item? Have you heard that one before? All right. What about, can I edit this website myself? Right? So you have that first initial meeting, and they say, oh, I really want to update this. Now, how many of those people actually go on to update it themselves? That's another question. How do I add my menu to my website. And I'm not talking about the drop-down menu, I'm talking about the restaurant menu, the services menu, something like that. And then they start questioning your craft, okay? So first they start asking questions about the website, then it's about your profession, right? So that's such a simple change, why does it cost so much, right? What's that all about? Have you guys heard that one? Okay. That takes how many hours? I can't believe it takes that long. Or, come on, aren't you going to cut me a break? I had this guy, I won't give you too many details because I know these things are recorded, but I used to do business with a bar in Iowa. Every single time. Now, I was cheap, okay? I was dirt cheap. Chris Lemma would have kicked my butt all over for being so cheap, right? He would ask me every single time I invoiced him, and this is like a $150 invoice, okay? Not an expensive invoice. He'd say, hey, why don't you cut me a break? We do business all the time. Does it really cost $150? Come on, give me half off. And so what I started doing is I started marking the invoice up to $200, and I would say, hey, I gave you a $50 discount. It was awesome, right? And he loved it. But point is, every single time it was insulting, right? He questioned what I did. I didn't question whether or not he was making a good product or creating a great experience, but he questioned me, right? Why did he do that? Because he didn't know, right? He didn't understand. And so we have answers to all these questions, right? We all do. For instance, how do I add a new menu item? Well, the education on that is how to create a page and a menu item, right? We teach our clients that sometimes when we think they can handle it, when we think that they have enough technical capacity to understand how to do it. Can I edit this website myself? The education there is, what is WordPress? Tell me about it, right? So we tell our clients, this is WordPress, this is what it does, this is why it's great, this is why we're building with it. How do I add my menu to my website? So how to create a page and upload an image or PDF. Then we have, that's such a simple change, why does it cost so much? Well, now we're going to educate people on scope and effort, right? Those are important things for them to understand, and that takes how many hours? I can't believe it takes that long. Again, effort, and the last is, come on, aren't you going to cut me a break? And now we talk about development as a professional craft, right? Okay, so the question is, what if we could teach as a part of the sales process, right? What if we could solve some of these problems? What if we could create an understanding of core industry trade concepts, right? If we could help our customers to understand what we do before we do it for them, right? And what if we could level up a client and their knowledge while we were prospecting and onboarding them, as opposed to doing this after the fact, okay? And the answer is we can, right? So let's create a workshop. Here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to find an audience. And just to let you guys know, I have some experience with this. So before I was the GoDaddy evangelist, I was working on a special project within the company that worked in cooperation with SCORE and SBDC to create training for small businesses, right? And so this was a workshop, a series of workshops that SBDC and SCORE could use to teach small business owners how to create websites in their office, okay? So we went through the whole process of creating this learning environment, worked with all sorts of other professional companies to create the training materials, some of which you'll see in the resources in the link I'm going to show you at the end. So the first thing we'll do is find an audience in your vertical. Now, how do you do that? Right? It seems like it might be complicated, but really there are plenty of places where you can find these audiences. So name a vertical that, that you're working in. Anybody? Somebody? Please, I was going to say, please tell me somebody's working within a vertical, because it's it's bigger money when you're working. That's a whole other subject. But anyway, so healthcare, right? So the question is, well, how do I find people in healthcare? How do I go and get these people? I can do search engine marketing, right? I can do SEO. I can do all sorts of things like that. But how do I find them in the context of workshops? The answer is you can go to your Chamber of Commerce. I know you have one because this is the website in Minneapolis for your chamber. Meetup.com groups, trade associations, neighborhood business associations. In bigger cities, this is a thing. Small business organizations, the SBA, they'll have resources. The SBDC, SCORE, these are two big small business organizations. You can talk with them and ask them where to find these people, right? Where to find people in the healthcare field, where to find people in the service industry, right? And so you go and you find where they are. That's the first step. The second step is to design the workshop to address common questions. And so we saw some of those common questions just a little bit ago. So this is the most complex slide that's up here. Sorry for all the text. But I wanted you to see these things side by side. So here are all the questions we went through. Can I edit this website myself? How do I add a new menu item? How do I add my menus to my website? All of those things, right? And on this side, we have the answers, okay? But the answers are in the form of a class curriculum, right? And so we have an introduction, then we have what is WordPress? Well, guess what? We just solved this question of whether or not they can edit their site themselves, right? Then we have WordPress basics, setting up your first site, pages and posts, uploading images, PDFs, menus, all that stuff. You can see how we start to knock these out, right? And then for more information, throw some community resources up there and your website contact. Oh, and by the way, you can get free venues. So some people say, oh, I can't, it's going to cost me, right? Now I got to go rent a space. Plenty of free places. In fact, there are some SBDC and SCORE chapters that will actually invite you in and have federal money to pay you to give these workshops. Okay? So you can give workshops and then you generate leads, create relationships with people. So find a free venue at a co-working location or a library. When I did this for GoDaddy, I bootstrapped it. I didn't ask them for a cent beyond the travel costs. I flew out to Chicago. I would go out there, I would talk with some local organizations, and I would say, hey, I've got some valuable information. I'm not going to charge you to teach it. I'll fly here on my own dime. Do you have space for me? They say, yeah. Excuse me. All right, and then advertise the workshop to those within the vertical you serve, right? So you found this group of people from these small business organizations. You can now advertise that to these people. And this is how that looks. So you want to list the expectations, right? This is an example of one of the events I threw in Chicago. It's for the Chicago Graphic Design Group. Now, we have a website builder that I was showing them. It wasn't WordPress. Don't hate me. It's before I was doing this, guys. But Chicago Graphic Design Group, you can still Google it. You can look it up if you want to. But basically, it has a description, and then it has some other information. What supplies do they need? Do they need a laptop? Right? Do they need a pen and paper? What's the financial obligation? Is there a cost of a domain name and hosting? By the way, people said, when I gave these things to them for free, they said, oh, I would have paid $100 to do that. So not only can you ask them to come and participate in this workshop, and not only can you generate interesting leads that are going to lead to more business in the future, but all of a sudden, you can now charge so that you make up the amount of money that it would have cost for your time in the first place, right? What will and won't be covered, what will be completed during the event, length of the event, and logistics, right? So those are all the things that you want to have on that page where you're advertising your event. And I'll also have a bigger list of expectations on my website on the link at the end. All right, and then you exchange contact details. and then you follow up, right? These are things that you do when you meet somebody at a trade show, or you meet somebody on the street, or at an event, or at a family gathering, and somebody says, hey, my buddy needs this site, or wherever you're prospecting people, right? In-person events or on LinkedIn, you're always doing these things, right? You're exchanging details, you're following up. And then something interesting happens, right? As a result of all of this, you've aligned yourself as an expert, right? So when you go and you seek out these healthcare groups, and you answer their specific questions, and you go at it full force, and you have a kick-ass workshop, right, that teaches them something that they didn't know before, you're aligning yourself as an expert. You've also become the go-to, right? So you're the one that threw the workshop, right? You're the one that they're going to come back to because you're the freshest in their mind, right? And so they're going to come back to you because they're going to get halfway done with their site, and they're going to say, man, you know what? This really is easy, but it's a hell of a lot harder than I thought it was, right? And they're going to have a new respect for your craft, right? They're going to have gone through this. They're going to see what it's like to create a website, and they're going to understand that there's actually a lot of work involved, right? So when they're on hour 6 or 7, and they've got the stock theme up on their site, and they have one page of content, and they can't figure out for the life of them how to get the contact form to turn into a contact form, right? This is when they're going to call you and say, man, I really need your help. And maybe it's coaching. Maybe you charge them at that point to coach them along, or maybe they decide they want you to do it for them, right? And so those are both options. So you have established a new meaningful relationship. And that's the most important part, one of the most important parts of a new client relationship, right? Is to have that relationship with them. Have it be meaningful, have it be memorable, so that they trust you in the future. You've spent $0. Maybe you've spent a couple bucks on gas or parking or something like that, or maybe on copies. Maybe you're giving them a handout or something like that. But the reality is, you've spent your time, and we've already talked about how you can compensate yourself for that. So what's the moral? Anybody know? Can anybody guess it? No, it's not the title. Oh, that's a good one. I like that. That's just a good life moral, All right. Moral is, humans love the feeling of empowerment, right? We all love it. We all love it. So solve for client empowerment, and business will come easily. Simple enough, right? So let's do Q&A. I will take anything from logistics on workshops to telling me that I'm full of it, whatever it is. So.
The benefits of the live class versus a YouTube class.
The benefits of the live class versus the YouTube class, and I say why choose, right? Do both, or do the live class and record it. The recorded class is going to reach a different audience. People learn differently, right? And so in this case, you're probably going to have a more meaningful, longer-lasting relationship with people you meet in person. People online, you might prospect more. They might not as many will turn into active leads. Yeah, I think that's the main difference. Really great for branding and awareness to have videos online. And I would say if you're doing that, snip them up. Right? Make them consumable. Make sure their descriptions are awesome. I think YouTube is number 2 as far as search engines go. So it's, yeah, good question. Anyone agree?
Our market is a little less sophisticated, I would say. Like a lot of our prospects don't even have websites at all for their business.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the workshop example you gave might be a little over their head. What would you suggest?
What's the industry?
Just our local small businesses. Our towns are small.
Okay, so the question was, Our small business owners aren't super sophisticated, so I'm a little worried that this stuff might be over their head. So what do you suggest? And I would suggest that they're not as unsophisticated as you might think. And what I mean by that is this. We did workshops with people who had Windows 95 on a laptop this thick, okay, that had, I think, I don't know, Internet Explorer like 2, maybe it was Netscape. It was crazy, right? And maybe it was a DOS, whatever. Point is, they weren't very sophisticated, some of them, right? And they all learned a lot. Some of them, the biggest thing that they took out of it was, boy, I should go look at Chrome, or I have spyware, right? So that was some, but a lot of them said, oh, this is great. I really learned a lot, right? Thank you. And that's what you want, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to empower somebody, you want to teach them something, you want to make them feel good, genuinely, right? You don't want to just pay them lip service, you want to help them. But if this is too complicated, and they look at you and they say, you know what, this is just too crazy for me. Like, I get what you're saying, but it's just too much. All of a sudden, you've at least made a friend that is now a prospect, right? That can come to you and say, okay, you know what? I couldn't do it, but it really sounds like you can do it, right? You're the one teaching me, so I think you can help, right? And so I actually think that in some ways that's a good thing.
I've been doing something similar to education, not just on WordPress, but other computer-related kind of classes, and it's been a really great way to meet clients. I get, close to half of my new client generation through classes. And it's kind of like to answer her earlier question. Three things happen. The first one is that it's completely over their head and they run away screaming. And the second thing that happens is they really like the class and they do it themselves. And the third thing, which is what you're hoping for, is that they figure out in the class that they absolutely don't want to do it themselves, but they still want it done, and then you're the go-to.
Yeah, so he agrees. That's the moral of that story. He doesn't and it works. So, does anybody think I'm just full of it? That is just crazy. Okay, all right, Julie, settle down. All right, other questions? We have a little more time, so I'm happy to take more questions. If not, I'll unleash my URL for you. But while I'm here, yeah. There are benefits to either. So, yeah. So the question is, do you recommend free or paid? So free is great because it's free. People love free. Right? You're going to get far more people that RSVP. You'll also get far more people that don't come. So in my experience, it's been about a third of the people that sign up actually come to a free event. And this is even when you're telling them that there are things in it for them. You can give them free food, it doesn't matter. Maybe it ups that percentage a little bit, but not much. But free also gives you more prospects, right? So you might catch, you might have 100 people RSVP, 25 people show, so you have 25 prospects. I would say that a paid event is better because obviously you get paid, right? You're going to have people that are more committed to their particular industry, probably, to their particular business or to learning. That could also mean that they're so committed to learning, they're not interested in hiring you, right? So that might detract from sales. You're going to get fewer people, but those are going to be more qualified leads. I think there'll be higher quality leads too, right? Because these are people that really, really cared. And usually when you have 25 people RSVP for an event that you're charging $20 for, 25 people are going to show up. Actually, even if you charge $5, and that seems strange, right? Because a lot of us, we don't have money to waste, but $5, You know, it's not make or break, right? But in a lot of cases, even $5 will be enough incentive to get 100% of the people there. So one way that I've done it is I'll ask them to pay $50, and then I'll pay for their hosting and their domain name. And that's a super easy way to incent them to come, but then also kind of give that money back to them. So that's one way to do it. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Sold. All right, guys, thank you very much. You can go here, mendel.me/presentations. The presentation should have been auto-published about 20 minutes ago, and there are additional resource links for you. And hit me up on Twitter if you have any other questions.